Just taking a look at my ammo collection. I've actually been taking a look at it in a little bit different light as I've been doing some research here. And I figured I'd take a look at these spam can lids that I've been acquiring over the years. And if you're not familiar with the spam cans, unlike our ammo, all the Warsaw Pack stuff and old Russian stuff came in these galvanized tin cans. There's sort of a wire that you use to kind of rip it open. Some of the Chinese cans like that one also work that way. Wasn't the greatest design. It did keep the ammo good for long-term storage, but then they came out with this, which is a different type of spam can, and they're packaged to a crate with one of these can openers. And once you use that can opener, this is what you're left with, the lid with all the stenciling and a pretty jagged, razor sharp edge all the way around. So most people just throw these things away as trash. However, I like to collect them. I'll grab them whenever I see someone pulling the top off of a spam can that they don't want to keep. My friends know when they get them that I'm willing to take them if they'll hold on to them for me. And I'll even grab them out of the trash at the range if I see them out there. I'd say they're usually trash, but since there's all this stenciling on them, it makes it a pretty interesting thing to take a look at as far as collectors go. Now, since it's in a foreign language, it might be difficult to interpret, and it is kind of hard to find resources for that. So we've been assembling some resources to help decipher all this stuff. But basically what we're looking at is some basic stuff, no matter what kind of can we're looking at, like this old galvanized one from Poland, or that Chinese one back there, or this one from Russia. So what we're looking at is the caliber, the type of round, the bullet. We're looking at the let's call it a lot number, the year of production, the factory, the amount that are in here, the quantity, some information on the type of round again, and then some information about the powder, year of production. That's generally what we're looking at. If we take a look at this older one from Poland, we have to start looking somewhere. So usually the first thing to start looking at is the caliber. So we know it's 7.62. Now I'm not sure pist TM. This might be 7.62 pistol, one of the Makarov rounds or something. We can see B039. We know that's probably the lot number, and then 54 is more than likely the date of production. 343, especially written like that with a little logo around it, we know is the State Munitions Factory in Silesia. I'm not sure how to say it in Polish, but we know that that's a Polish factory number. And then we know from the general nomenclature on these type of things that this is probably the powder information. So it's possible that the powder was made in 52, and this was the lot number or the specification of the powder. The round was made in 54 with that lot number at that Polish factory, and it's probably that type of Polish pistol round. We're back to this 545 again. The NC. This one we can see that the RC is telling us that it's a steel cartridge case. And we're looking at a lot number. This is factory 270, which is the Lugansk, however you say it. Some information about the cartridge again. Then the powder was made in 1976, some lot numbers, 1080 in the case. So that's your typical 545. I've got a couple from that the factory 270, but we see this one is 81, that one was 76, this one's 81, and this one's 83. Notice they've all been NCRC, but not necessarily stamped in the same order. But otherwise, I'm not paying attention to the powder because really, what's that going to do for us? But taking a look at the date in the factory, we're seeing that all these from 270 are just from different dates, but they're all that NCRC steel case ammo. So next, we're looking at one from factory 3, which is the Yuli factory, or Ulyanovsk. Who knows how to say it in Russian? We're looking at steel case ammo again because of the RC. and we're looking at 83 for the manufacture date of the cartridge, 82 for the manufacture date of the powder, and then quantity. So that was the Yulee factory. Next we're looking at factory 539. Everyone's familiar with that one. It's Tula, the Wolf factory. Except this is military ammo. Again, made in 76. Powder made in 1976. We're looking at some steel case stuff again. 545. And, you know, height of the Cold War. Another one from Tula. This one's actually also made in 1976, but it was lot number P14 instead of P16, and different powder lots. So that's kind of interesting to a collector, I suppose. Now we're looking at a 7.62 that's different. How do we know if this is 7.62 by 54 or 7.62 by 39? Easiest way to tell is usually the count. They can only fit so many of those larger 7.62 by 54R cartridges in here. So figure 500 is the dividing line. You'll never see one with exactly 500, but if there's less than 500 in there, it's probably 5.4, and if it's 600 or more, then it's going to be the 7.62 by 39. Now if it gets into the thousands in one case, now you're looking at 5.45 again, but that's obvious with the numbers there. So we know that this is 5.4R. This is just a little different letter designation there, but the R Russian X looking symbol there, that's telling us that it's this guiding metal steel cartridge, which is a mostly copper and zinc cover over a steel jacket. So it's neat because I don't see that one very often. Again, we're looking at a lot number, made in 1975 at Factory 60, which is the state factory at Frunze. Then we've got powder made in 75, and again 440 count. This one's a little different because it has this piece of silver paint there, and that's telling us the bullet code. The bullet color code, silver bullet tip, is a light ball with a steel core. And I'm putting together all these resources. I'm sort of creating the resources as we're using them, so stay tuned for links on all these things. So that's telling us the type of bullet. This is telling us the type of cartridge. That's telling us the type of cartridge case material, the caliber, the lot number, the date, the factory again, and the quantity. And here's another one, basically the same stuff, just looks a little different because the stencil must have got smeared or something. Basically the same stuff from the same factory, just a different lot number. More of the same. You end up with a lot of 5.4R lids because it's obviously such a cheap round to shoot. Next we're looking at another 54R, but this one we're seeing a different factory. This one's from Bulgaria, the Circle 10, the Arsenal factory in Bulgaria. Again, lot number, date, so 1982, powder from 1982. We're looking at the same type of case, that copper and zinc washed steel, and that, I think that's light ball, if I remember right. Still looking these things up. So this is 5.4R. It's not really on topic with ours, but we're going through them anyway. And then just another one, pretty much the same, just a decade earlier, 1972. That last one was 1982, and this one we still had the bullet indicator mark there. More of the same exact stuff. And then we find a couple that are a little different. We've got this one that says 7.62, but then LPS, which is already weird because it's back to our type of letters, and then ZGS, so this is a different code. 40 dB, I'm guessing that's the quantity, since that makes sense for 54R. That makes sense. We've got the bullet color code there. So now we've got these letters, and they're in the wrong place, from what we're used to, and they're different. So 721, 77, and 76, 51. So let's start taking it apart. Let's assume that 77 is date of production, 76 is date of production of the powder. That's probably lot number and everything for the powder. So that would make sense that the powder was built the year before the cartridge, perhaps. This 4 is probably telling us what type of something it is, bullet maybe, or the case. So 721 may be a lot number, or 7 might be the lot number, and 21 might be the factory. That's a tough one because factory 21 was allocated to both Hungary and Poland. So depending on the head stamp of the actual bullet is how you determine that one. 51, if that was the factory number, would be a Chinese factory, and this just doesn't look Chinese at all. So Hungary, Poland, that's a tough one. I was going to say German at first look, but it doesn't. Nothing on here lines up with a German factory. Now I have another one that's similar, but there's some differences. So first off, we can see that they're both 7.62, but this one's DPS, that one's LPS, so probably heavy and light. Then we can go to the color code is the next easiest one to see that's different. The bullet tip is going to be heavy ball, so let's assume that that means that this is a heavier ammo. Then we can come back over and we see there's a 21 and a 51, which doesn't help us determine if it's which factory it might be. But 75 and 74 again probably relates to the year of manufacture of the cartridge and the powders. So I'm not really sure if these are Hungarian or Polish. It's part of the fun of collecting though. It's something I'll discover. Maybe somebody will know from this video. Here's a neat one. It's a 545, but it's different. It's PSGS, which is already different because again we're using letters that we're familiar with, our type of letters. And then we've got a different type of code here. C0993, which is alright, and then 21. Now 21 again is that factory number that's weird. We've got SRNF, which doesn't help me. The factory. So then we've got 89 here at the bottom number for the powder stuff. So looks like the powder was made in 89. It wasn't assembled into rounds until 93. I know that it's a 545, but it's a PSGS, and it's either Polish or Hungarian. So that's a neat one. We'll have to again do some research on that one. And then finally, I guess in the pile I've got this one, which is obviously part of the transition between military and civilian ammo sales. They got away from the Cyrillic codes and color designations and things, just wrote it out in English because that's where it's going. Hunting cartridge, mil spec, 7.62 by 39 millimeter, no question about that. 124 grain, full metal jacket, and then 700 rounds, and almost an even number. Most of my lids, I do have a couple of cases where I've cut the back out and pulled the ammo out when I've been able to do so. And this one is again a 545. Now this one's 545 by 39.5, and then it's Circle 10, so Bulgaria, and then 91, powder made in 88. Got one of my few 7.62 by 39 cans. This one says 8RC, so steel case, made in whatever G10 is, 94, powder made in 92. I have no idea what this is. I'm still trying to figure out what Nathapoli oxynolian is. And we got a 660 count, and that 660 count can tell you if it's loose pack or if it's packed in stripper clips. Typically when they're in these with the lower counts, they're packed in stripper clips, and when they're the higher counts, like 600 or 700, that's when they're loose. So this is one of my cool 7.62 by 39s, and then this is a neat one, but a little less interesting. But again, full-fledged into domestic ammunition sales, made in Russia, small arms ammunition, all written in English, 7.62 by 39, of course, things that people care about, non-corrosive, written out in English, then just a plain old lot number, so it's not scary, and then 640 rounds. So this is telling us again that this is probably packed in the packages of 20. And again, I popped the back to get those out of there. Just taking the time to keep it instead of throwing it away, you're able to amass a collection totally free, and it's kind of neat. So that's another aspect of collecting AK-47 ammo. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, thanks for watching.